a WikiVidi documentaries production. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Enjoy. Brett Kavanaugh Supreme Court nomination. President Donald Trump nominated Judge Brett Kavanaugh to become an Associate Justice of the Supreme Court of the United States on July 9, 2018, filling the vacancy left by the retirement of Anthony Kennedy. When nominated, Kavanaugh was a sitting judge at the United States Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia Circuit. The Senate Judiciary Committee began Kavanaugh's confirmation hearing on September 4. At the end of the confirmation process, Kavanaugh was accused of sexually assaulting Christine Blasey Ford 36 years prior, while they were both in high school in 1982. The Senate Judiciary Committee postponed its scheduled vote to allow both Blasey Ford and Kavanaugh to respond. In the interim, two other women alleged separate instances of sexual assault. Kavanaugh categorically denied allegations made by Ford, Ramirez, and Swetnick. Both Kavanaugh and Blasey Ford were questioned by members of the Judiciary Committee and Arizona-based sex crimes prosecutor Rachel Mitchell on September 27. The following day, the Judiciary Committee voted 11-10 to send the nomination to the floor. Senator Jeff Flake and later the full Senate Judiciary Committee requested a week-long FBI supplemental background investigation into the sexual assault allegations. On October 6, the Senate voted 50-48 to confirm Kavanaugh's nomination to the Supreme Court. Nomination to the Supreme Court. Kavanaugh was officially announced as the nominee for Associate Justice of the Supreme Court of the United States on July 9, 2018, selected as the Supreme Court nominee from among a list of 25 highly qualified potential nominees, considered by the Trump administration. Reasons cited by President Trump for the nomination of Kavanaugh included his impeccable credentials, unsurpassed qualifications, and a proven commitment to equal justice under the law, with the emphasis that what matters is not a judge's political views, but whether they can set aside those views to do what the law and the Constitution require. Voting alignment. In reference to Kavanaugh's voting alignment if confirmed, 538 used Lee Epstein et al.'s judicial common space scores to find that Kavanaugh would likely be more conservative than Justices Samuel Alito and Neil Gorsuch, but less conservative than Justice Clarence Thomas, if placed on the Supreme Court. During the confirmation process, Senator Ted Cruz stated that Kavanaugh joined Judge Merrick Garland's rulings on 28 out of 30 cases, and he joined his opinions in 27 out of 28 cases. The Washington Post's statistical analysis estimated that the ideologies of most of Trump's announced candidates were statistically indistinguishable, and placed Kavanaugh between Justices Neil Gorsuch and Samuel Alito. American Bar Association rating. The American Bar Association gave Kavanaugh a unanimous, well-qualified rating for his nomination, after Kavanaugh was accused of sexual impropriety. The president of the ABA issued a statement that the nomination should not be voted on until the allegations have been investigated by the FBI. On October 5, 2018, the chairman of the ABA Standing Committee on the Federal Judiciary announced that the committee had reopened its evaluation regarding temperament, and that reassessment and re-vote would not be completed before the Senate vote. Support. Senate Republicans expressed support for Kavanaugh's nomination. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell stated his intent to support the nomination, referring to Kavanaugh as highly regarded throughout the legal community. At the time of the nomination, the Republican Party held a functional 50-49 majority in the Senate, with Arizona Senator John McCain's treatment for glioblastoma brain cancer keeping him from the Senate since December 2017. After McCain's death on August 25, 2018, the governor of Arizona Doug Ducey named former Senator John Kyle as his replacement. Kyle was sworn in on September 5, 2018. Prior to the selection, Kyle had been working for Kavanaugh's confirmation. Yale Law School's Professor Akhil Reed Amar, a leading expert on constitutional law and originalism, whose notable students include Kavanaugh, Chris Coons, and Cory Booker, called the nomination of Kavanaugh Trump's finest hour, his classiest move. Amar also remarked that Kavanaugh commands wide and deep respect among scholars, lawyers, and jurists. Robert S. Bennett, an attorney who represented President Bill Clinton during the Lewinsky scandal, stated that he supported Kavanaugh's confirmation. In their blog, The Libre Initiative, a group funded by Freedom Partners, a non-profit group backed by the Koch brothers and other conservative donors, encouraged Latinos to support Kavanaugh. The Latino Coalition, established in 1995 by Hispanic business owners, and whose chairman is Hector Barreto, administrator of the United States Small Business Administration from 2001-2006, also support Kavanaugh. Opposition. A number of Senate Democrats, including Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, stated intent to oppose Kavanaugh's confirmation. It was also reported by Vox that some social conservatives are disappointed that Trump nominated Brett Kavanaugh. The American Family Association, a socially conservative organization founded in 1977, immediately called on its members to rally against Kavanaugh. March for Life also expressed concerns that Kavanaugh's leadership bore similarities to that of Vice President Mike Pence, saying that the judge lacked the backbone to overturn Roe v. Wade. An open letter rebuking Yale Law School over a press release celebrating Kavanaugh's nomination was signed by over 600 of its alumni. The American Civil Liberties Union has stated that Kavanaugh's record demonstrates hostility to international law as a constraint on government action as well as an unwillingness to hold the government to account when it violates the constitutional and human rights of U.S. citizens and non-citizens, and that his approach would give the president exceedingly broad and dangerous powers. A number of progressive groups have joined together to launch a campaign known as Hip the Vote to rally opposition to Kavanaugh's nomination, aimed particularly among moderate and conservative Democrats. Democratic senators should be united in opposition to Kavanaugh. Instead of letting Republican senators ram through the confirmation of a nominee who was selected to protect the president from prosecution, reads a statement from the effort's website. An open letter from Native Americans called upon senators to closely examine Kavanaugh's record regarding Native peoples, and they felt that he had failed to acknowledge the sovereignty, natural resources, and history and heritage of Native people. In August 2018, self-described, liberal feminist lawyer, Lisa Blatt said that Democrats should support Kavanaugh. She withdrew her support after the confirmation hearings at the beginning of September 2018 and additionally argued for Kavanaugh's impeachment from the federal judiciary. Writing, after the revelations of his confirmation hearings, the better question is whether he should be impeached from the federal judiciary. Benjamin Wittes, an official at the Brookings Institution and the Hoover Institution and a vocal critic of Donald Trump, initially also expressed support for Kavanaugh, but said that he would be confirmed, for all the wrong reasons, in an article attacking partisanship surrounding Supreme Court nominations. Wittes withdrew his support after Ford and Kavanaugh's testimony before the Senate, finding Ford wholly credible and Kavanaugh's account not credible on his drinking habits and his performance improper and unacceptable in a justice. More than 2,400 American law professors signed a letter opposing Kavanaugh's confirmation on the basis of his intemperate, inflammatory and partial manner during his congressional testimony, without referencing any of the accusations about his behavior decades earlier. Former Supreme Court Justice John Paul Stevens, 98 years old at the time, stated on October 4, 2018 that he previously thought Kavanaugh had the qualifications for the Supreme Court should he be selected, but his performance in the hearings ultimately changed my mind. The Washington Post editorial board opposed Kavanaugh's confirmation, their first opposition to a nominee since Robert Bork in 1987, citing his hyper-partisan rhetoric that poisoned any sense that he could serve as an impartial judge. On October 4, 2018, three of Kavanaugh's Yale drinking buddies published an opinion piece opposing his confirmation, asserting he was dishonest in his sworn testimony and in a Fox News interview, without referencing any of the sexual abuse accusations against him. Public reactions and polling. The Senate Judiciary hearings were interrupted by a number of protesters, at least 227 of whom were arrested. In September 2018, Kavanaugh had the lowest polling rating of any Supreme Court nomination since Robert Bork in 1987. Senate confirmation. Kavanaugh's nomination was officially sent to the Senate on July 10, 2018. His nomination was done before the Senate Judiciary Committee, which holds 11 Republican members and 10 Democratic members. As with any confirmation process, prior to the official hearings, Kavanaugh and participating senators chaired mock sessions and hearings in order to create a smooth process and identify proper conduct for the senators and Kavanaugh. Documents. Judge Kavanaugh had over 4,800 pages of opinions provided for review. On the evening of September 3, just hours before the hearing began, as part of the nomination process, around 457,000 additional documents had been produced in response to his nomination as of September 3, 2018. A nominee questionnaire was also returned with 17,000 pages of supporting documents. Over 267,000 of the documents not already public as part of his service in the Bush administration have been released publicly. The White House of the Trump administration has used presidential privilege to prevent the public release of over 100,000 pages of Kavanaugh's records of his service for the Bush administration. Controversially, Bill Burke, a former Bush attorney, is a veteran of Kavanaugh documents. Burke reportedly is a longtime friend of Kavanaugh's. Burke has represented Don McGahn, Reince Priebus, and Steve Bannon regarding special counsel Robert Mueller's investigation. On September 6, during hearing proceedings, Senator Cory Booker released a series of documents to the public during a line of questioning about documents that had been deemed confidential by the committee. While releasing the documents, Booker stated, "I'm going to release the email about racial profiling. I understand the penalty comes with potential ousting from the Senate." Separately, another confidential email from 2003 concerning abortion was leaked to the New York Times. The documents themselves had been cleared for release the night before. Confirmation hearing. Senate Judiciary Committee Chairman Chuck Grassley announced on August 10 that the hearings would occur prior to the November midterm elections, from September 4 through September 7 or 8. It was reported by U.S. Capitol Police that between September 4 to 7, at least 227 protesters were arrested, with most being charged with disorderly conduct, crowding or obstructing, with fines paid between $35.50 US. Senator Orrin Hatch said, "These people are so out of line they shouldn't even be allowed in the doggone room." His statements were echoed by President Trump, who expressed concern over "Why don't they take care of a situation like that? And, I think it's embarrassing for the country to allow protesters. You don't even know which side the protesters were on." September 4, 2018. The Senate Judiciary Committee confirmation hearings began at 9:30 a.m. September 4, 2018, in the Hart Senate Office Building, with the first hearing chaired by Senator Chuck Grassley. The hearing quickly became chaotic, with protesters and also Senator Kamala Harris interrupting Senator Grassley's opening statement. The hearings were delayed by 1 hour, because of procedural questions by Harris, Cory Booker and others, who called for a delay in the proceedings, because of the last-minute release by former President George W. Bush's lawyer of 42,000 pages of documents from Kavanaugh's service under then-President Bush. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer called for a delay prior to the proceedings, saying that not a single senator will be able to review these records before tomorrow to delay the proceedings. The Capitol Police reported that 17 protesters were arrested in the first hour of the hearing. September 5, 2018. The second day of the hearing began with the senators asking direct questions at Kavanaugh about specific incidents, or his personal position on cases, or general ideas. Members of the committee were allowed 30 minutes per individual to question the judge on his record, with key points being his judicial philosophy, Roe v. Wade, and his role in programs implemented after 9/11 by the Bush administration. He was also asked by Senator Kamala Harris if he, Kavanaugh, had ever discussed the Robert Mueller investigation with anybody at the Kasowitz Benson Torres firm, that was founded by Mark Kasowitz, a personal attorney of Donald Trump. Interruptions from protesters continued to be seen in the courtroom, with both Judge Kavanaugh and Senator Grassley and others speaking about the disruptions, with Grassley placing blame on the Democrat senators. According to Capitol Police officials, 73 protesters were arrested and charged for unlawful demonstrations during the day of the hearing, including 66 who were removed from the hearing room. September 6, 2018. The third day of the hearing saw Kavanaugh answering and not answering questions posed to him by the committee. One such refusal was to comment on Senator Blumenthal's concern of Trump's blatant, craven, and repeated attacks on the federal judiciary, referring to Trump's tweet that Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg has embarrassed all by making very dumb political statements about me. Her mind is shot. Resign. The hearing also saw highly charged arguing between senators about whether key documents were being withheld, with Booker releasing documents about the judge through social media. September 7, 2018. On the fourth day, outside witnesses in support or dissent of Judge Kavanaugh being appointed to the Supreme Court gave testimony to the committee on their position. One such invited individual was John Dean, a former Nixon administration White House counsel, who testified against the administration during Watergate. Others included a survivor of the Parkland school shooting, the attorney who represented an undocumented teenager whose request for an abortion Kavanaugh was legally involved in, former law clerks, students, representatives of the American Bar Association, former U.S. Solicitors General during the Bush administration, and former Boston Marathon running partners. Brought to you by WikiVidi Documentaries. Would you like to know more?